Hey everybody, Kelly here. So this week I've got a pretty busy week at work and pretty busy week at home too. And so I actually am just kind of looking for something quick to sew, just to relax a little bit before going to sleep. And so I was just trying to think of a quick project that I could do up. And I was watching So Yeah tonight, and they had a quilt in the background that I think I can do something similar, and it'd be quick and easy, and yeah, that it'll be neat. So I actually thought they had it with 2.5-inch strips, I'm sure. I think I've done a similar quilt in the past. It was one from Missouri Star Quilt Company from Jenny Doan that actually took layer cakes, and you place two pieces together, sew it all the way around the outside, and then cut it in half one way and cut it in half cut it basically an X into it, and then you take your 4 pieces and they're squares that you can mix and match and place in the quilt. So I think I'm going to try to do something similar to that, but after I've sewn together my strips. I think I'll do 4 strips, or sets of 4 strips, and then cut them to 10-inch squares, and then sandwich them together. And I think if I sandwich together one horizontal and one vertical, that it'll come out with kind of a neat pattern. So for right now, I'm just gonna get to sewing my strip sets, and I'll bring you back when I've got those, and we'll cut them and then sew those together, and we'll see what we get. I probably should have showed you what I'm actually gonna use to do the project. So I was looking through all my jelly rolls and trying to decide which one, and I'm very much in the mood for fall, even though it's September 2nd right now, which by the time this gets done, it'll be probably mid-September. And anyhow, but I'm really ready for fall, even though it's going to be in the 90s this week. So it's great, isn't it? We had 90s in beginning of August, and then it got cool for like this last little week here, and then now all of a sudden it's back up to 90 tomorrow. So that's awesome. And I'm pretty sure I have a cricket somewhere here in this room. I've been searching for him. I don't get very many cricket, like spiders, anything like that. We don't get very many of, but they're coming in. Gotta love fall, or late summer anyhow. And living however many feet away from a cornfield. So, alright, well anyhow, this is the bundle that I'm going to use, and I picked this one today mostly because A, it doesn't have any directional prints in it, and B, it's already starting to fall apart. So, I think I maybe had used a strip or 2 out of it, and so it seems like a good one to go ahead and take apart and use for this quilt project. In fact, I'm kind of wondering if I didn't make it up from a couple different bundles or something like that. Knowing me, I used parts and pieces out of 2 bundles and then stuck the rest of it together, and just don't remember what I did. Anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and start mixing and matching certain colors and making my strip sets, and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to cut. I thought I'd show you what I don't really love about some strip sets. They are super messy. So apparently I should have like vacuumed off the jelly roll before I opened it up. I don't use my jelly rolls too often, and so I forget that some of them are very much like this and could just be, it's like I've had I used to use like a lint roller across the top of them, and that's what I should have done in this case. I just haven't used one in a long time, and I forgot until I just tore the rubber band off, and it all, yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to try to pull out all my lights and stick all the browns and the blues, put them all together, and then I'll just kind of grab from the pile different colors. So, let's see, browns, and kind of mustard. In fact, there's so many browns in here, I may just divide those out too. So that's more creams, tans, mustards, and rich browns there. Put that in its own pile. And blues and a little bit of red. Actually, not really red, brown. So just a different. Here's red. Some kind of burgundy's red, burgundy red sort of thing. So we'll put those all in there in pile 2. And blues to black almost. Yeah, I would say that's black. So I could actually divide those up too. And I need 4 strips per set, so basically probably a red, a blue, a mustard, a brown, and then a white. Maybe I'll divide it into these 4 colors for this, because I need to have actually 2 different sets, and it's got to be more than that, of course, but I have to be able to put one set on top of the other, so I want to make sure that I've got different prints for what ends up being the different blocks. So this might take a little more figuring than I had thought. It usually does. Alright, well, let me do some, let's see. Okay, so if I got these 2 are the same. And then I use maybe a red. So do those 2 and those 2. That's the other thing. I could do it literally where these 4 pieces right here, the 2 blacks and the 2 reds, that it's all 4 of these go together. Or I could make this into 2 sets, like pick out 2 more fabrics and then have 2 sets of the same style. I think that's probably what I'll end up doing. Just pick out 2 tans then to go with the black, or should I pick out 2 lights? What do you think? I'm gonna go with the 2 tans for right now. Next set will probably be 2 whites. So I got red, black, tan. I'm thinking maybe the stripe, because I've got flowers in the tan. And I got this print already, so I don't want this one, really. Doesn't really matter, I guess, but so thinking maybe the stripe. So let's take it. Alright, so there's technically 2 sets. So that'll work. And then let's do another one. Let's take, oh, that's a different style. So these 2 are the same. Let's take those 2. And then let's do, so I want them to go in different orders too. So put the black on the top. And then let's use this one right here, the mustard. And what do we think? The white and red, I think, is what I want to do now. So let's go ahead and do the stripe. Or is that just one piece? Let's see. That's 2 pieces. All right. So let's do the stripe then. And then let's choose brown. Yep, I think I will. So we'll make that the second set. Okay, so this is a scrappy piece. This is a scrappy piece. Those can be borders or binding. So blue has a scrappy piece, and then there's 2 of those. So are there 2? So these actually are just this 2. So blue and kind of mustardy there, and then these are scraps. Those 2. And then tans. That's going to be a scrap. That's going to be on there. What do we got here with the whites? So this one's going to be a scrap one. And then these 2 right here. So now this is awkward because technically these 2 are the same style of print, just different colors. So is there something that I can maybe change up? Let's see. So this bundle right here, I could actually change out the white stripe. And then do that one like that. Maybe. Or I might put it underneath the mustard actually. So that's it, kind of like that, and then let's put the whites underneath the mustard and see how. Something like that maybe. Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to sew these strip sets together and I'll come back and we'll cut it and we'll go from there. Alright, well my seams or my strips should be 8.5 inches, but they're actually a little over 8 3/4. I think because of the, I cannot think of the word I want to use. So I don't think they were legit 2.5 inch strips. I think they were slightly more than that. But anyhow, so now I want to cut them down to, I'm going to go with 8 3/4. So for now I'm just going to cut the stack to 8 3/4. And then I will actually trim up each square from there. That was not a very good cut. Oh well. I think my blade's getting not so sharp. And I think I'm gonna trim up each block later because I'm kind of got them in a stack right now and I can't get them all lined up together. So I'm just gonna trim it down to 8 3/4, and I'll trim it down some more after that. And honestly, I'm probably not being real precise with this quilt top, just kind of being quick and seeing what pattern I can get. I still want it to turn out nice. I just want to basically use this as a test to see and then do a different one with a different jelly roll set. I just want to see how it behaves. I think, if I'm correct, part of it'll be horizontal and part of it'll be vertical. I should have laid it out in the EQ8, but I kind of thought this way I would have another quilt to practice quilt with. And I would be able to find out if my pattern is going to be right, just using this method quickly. Nope, and I'm off there. Oh well. Like I said, I'll trim them down better later. And I don't think I've got quite enough. Oh, maybe. Nope. Not quite enough left there. So I'll probably trim off this selvage here and use this on the back somehow. Because I'm actually at 8 inches there. And I think I've got plenty for the top, so. Of course, I didn't really plan, so I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I don't have plenty, who knows. Like I said, just a test. Okay, so this is the one that I got off just a hair there. Really only a couple threads. So 8 3/4. It's almost square. Pull it a little bit and it didn't iron very flat for some reason. So the plan then is something like this one vertical, this one horizontal, stitch around it, cut, cut, and in theory part is vertical and part is horizontal. You can see my cuts are off, but yeah, this is just a quick stitch and flip and get it done. Alright, so this one is the same as that one. And then so if I don't use this one, so I need to use this one, okay. And if I use that as the vertical still, that's going to cause some problems there, so oh, I guess not if I do use it as the, so now if it's the horizontal, is it going to cause a problem because it actually meets with this one when they get sewn together again. I think it will. So honestly, it could still cause a problem. I don't know. That's part of the test here, is trying to see what has to match up with what. So this one is on the top here. So we'll put it this way. Alright, now the trick will be basically doing the same thing for all the other sets over here. Alright, well, I'll bring you back when I get it all the pieces sewn, and we'll cut it in half and half, and we'll see what we get. So I was just thinking I could really do a super easy quilt this week and just start laying these blocks out and sew them together. But I really want to see how this is going to turn out if I do the horizontal with the vertical and sew it all the way around and cut it. I want to see the angles that I come up with. So I'm just going to go ahead and put all my sets out, and then I'll have them all set up to sew together. So like that one. My hands don't want to work tonight. And that one. All right, 2 more sets here. And I thought I would do vertical, horizontal, vertical, and then these 3 on the top. And we'll see how this patch maybe comes out any different than the others. Okay, so all laid out, and now we'll just take this set and sew to that set, this one to this, and that's it. Alright. I realized that I got a little too far and was watching a movie and didn't stop and show y'all what I was doing. So I'll just demonstrate here really quickly. And these are just the cutoffs from the end of the strips that are not square. So take that into account. So I had a horizontal piece and I had a vertical piece. And like I said, these are not equal, but I laid them out like this, and then, sorry, there's hair on there. And then sewed around the edge, and then I just cut it diagonally one way and cut it diagonally the other way. And then I ended up, you know, with a piece like that. So it was like, it was a cutout from this section right here, and then ended up with that style. So that's how I did the horizontal and vertical, and do it fairly easy. So then from there, my easy quilt is becoming a little bit more difficult because
I realize that I'm not going to have a big enough size with a jelly roll when I do all these cutouts and have to have seams. So I think what I'm going to do to make this a decent sized quilt is actually cut some solid blocks from a few fabrics that I've picked out. So some of them, like I was trying to pick out one that would be the one that I would put in each spot, and it would be the background, a single background color. But the thing is, I went through my stash and I picked out several different ones to choose from, and now I can't choose from them. So I'm thinking I'm maybe gonna cut all of them into some 6-inch squares and sporadically make it more scrappy. I had thought about maybe just using a charm pack, because like this charm pack right here has pretty much all the colors. In fact, I mean, it's got more green than what these patches have, but it's got blues and tans and browns, reds. The red is not really the correct red though, so there's that too. But mostly it's because it's slightly smaller than what these blocks are. These still need to be cut down. They still need to be ironed, in fact, and cut down. But even if I trim them more than 6x6, say one of them was off really bad and I have to trim them to 5.5 by 5.5, I can still get 5.5 out of this, and these are only 5. So I kind of quickly put that aside and decided to go with yardage. So I will get all of these ironed and trimmed so that I know exactly what size. Like I said, most of them, they should be 6x6, but if I made a mistake on 1 or 2 or something, I'm going to need to actually cut them a little smaller than that. So I will cut these first before I start cutting my yardage for background squares. And this is the only one that kind of, I love the color of it, but the design is more Christmas to me, and so it's kind of maybe not gonna get included after all. But I really like that one. Has kind of the grayish, tannish, and blue. This one actually is more green than what the rest of the strips are, but it's kind of got the shape of some of the items that are in the strips. So this one I just like to make it just a little bit less masculine, and it's got the brown and the blues. This one I really like because it just already has that angle to it, and the gray and cream tone are in the strips. And then this one I really like just because of the tone of the background. And again, it has that masculine vibe without really being, because it's a rose. So it's, the only thing I didn't like about this one was that it's the silver metallic to it, and most of the strips have more of a gold item in them than silver. So, but then again, maybe that's what makes it unique, makes it a little bit different. And this one, I really liked this one. It's got the cream stripe and the reddish tone to it that is very similar to the tone. It's not exact, but it's close enough for me. And actually it's kind of more that flower tone there. So if I had to pick just one, that would probably end up being it. And in fact, I'll probably cut this one first and lay out a bunch of squares in with these and then see. And I may end up just liking this one. So I usually don't like to work with stripes, but in this situation where I'm kind of doing it offset anyway, it won't bother me. See if I can show you a reason that I don't necessarily like to work with stripes. These all turned out not too terrible. There's got to be one in here somewhere. I know there was. Give me a second. I know there was one. I saw it, and it was bothering me. So see, like that right there. Not too terrible, but it bothers me. The fact that you don't even see this cream tan line up here, and yet there it is. And the brown starts less than a finger width and ends up more like thumb width. So that's kind of my trouble with lines, and I think in this particular case it was less me sewing it and more the fact of how it was cut, because I noticed that in the jelly roll that there were some strips that were definitely not cut straight, or they were 2.5 at the top and 2.5 at the bottom, but they weren't aligned right when they were cut. So, but yeah, I think I'm going to cut this one first just to see. I may decide just to go with just that one print, because that's really what I had thought at first. Alright, well I think I got really quiet again, so I don't know how much of this you'll actually see. In fact, let me take you around or up above so you can really see what it is that I'm working on here. I know not everybody likes the motion, so you can see my messy under table there. But yeah, that's the squares so far. I've been kind of moving them around and mixing and matching and seeing, you know, I am kind of wondering maybe do it that way instead and have the two verticals next to each other. I don't know. I think I liked it the way it was. So I'll probably still be mixing and matching. And a lot of times I say it's going to be an easy quilt, but then I make it more difficult wanting to do different things and try this and try that. But honestly, I think it'll mostly be an easy quilt top, and I should have it done by the end of the week. So I just couldn't believe I was cutting away and watching my show and got done with the last one and went, uh-oh, I think I forgot to show anybody what I was doing there. And I got some trick-or-treat bags over there on the corner that I need to get made up this week too. Well, I don't need to. I want to. Alright, well, I'll cut out those squares and bring you back when I start laying everything out. Hopefully I'll remember to bring you back when I start laying it out. Alright, well I was just looking over at my stash and realized that this blue had been put into a different bundle. But I had this 3-yard cut bundle. And so really the 4 of these should be together, and then I should do a scrappy color quilt out of those. Or possibly cut a patch and border it and just use each of the different colors, something like that, something basic like that. And then while I was looking over that way, I found another fabric that I'm thinking might go well with this. And again, it was just in a little bundle, and I think that might actually be a neat background with this. I like the diamonds, and especially being a quilt that's going to be on point. And so I may cut like 6 patches of that, or 5 patches of this, and just lay them across the center here, see how I like it with just this print. And I may cut 5 patches of this and lay them across and see how I like it with just this one. And knowing me, I may end up doing something scrappy where maybe one row is this color and one row is that color, or maybe I have the 2 different colors side by side, kind of a thing. That actually might be the way it goes. Either way, I'm going to cut at least 5 to lay them out in a row and get a better idea of which one I'm going to like. I don't know. This one is kind of, I like the stripe, but it's a little bit darker. And I like the diamond, but it's a little bit, I want to say it's light fabric because it's white background, but it's also a little bit intense with the diamonds if you have it in very large of a block. So we'll see. Well, if I had cut all of my squares into force correctly, or what do I want to say, accurately, I wouldn't have had to go back through and make sure that they were cut to the right side. I do want to get the dog ears off. I would have just clipped the dog ears off and then just had my blocks ready, but I actually had a couple of whoopsies when I was cutting instead of going 100% straight. So I have like 2 blocks that I knew I had just a little bit of a cutout on. So I thought, well, I'll just go back through and resize them, make sure everything's accurate for when I'm sewing these together. As you can see, I think you can see on here, it is a little bit. So like if I put it on 5 3/4 was what I ended up going with, because the first one was just a little bit short of 6. You can see most of them were a little bit short of 6 inches. So I went with 5 3/4. Well, if I line it up over on this side for 5 3/4, I am a little bit janky on this side. So it's probably a good thing that I went through and cut them all. I don't know that it was necessarily off far enough to have really distorted a whole lot, but it's just as well. So mostly though, it was about just needing to cut off the dog ears. And then I don't have a rotating mat, so I usually just have to do the other side here. But see, now I should be able to line it up, well, except for that little scrap there. I should be able to line it up with 5 3/4 on both sides here and still be going down the center. And then I'll just trim the outer sides, and I have a 5 3/4 block. And then I will just trim down my large pieces that I'm going to try to use to 5 3/4. That's why I was thinking I didn't really want to use the charm pack because it was going to be too small. It would save me time and get this project done quicker if I could have just cut these to 5-inch squares and then used the 5-inch charm pack, but I hate to waste that much. And I could have actually tried to figure out maybe doing 3 strips instead of 4 strips, and then cutting it to a 5-inch, because 3 strips would have been what, 6.5 inches? I don't know. I didn't want to do the math. So I just went with 4 strips. Ended up cutting, I think, an 8.5 inch square block. Cut that into 4ths. And yeah, if I had cut those a little bit more accurately to begin with, I wouldn't have had to do this step, but it's okay having to do this step. And I've been watching Kate at the Last Homely House, and I was watching Aditya Sitar on laundry basket quilts, and then I thought, oh, I better get back to what I was doing. I get, the only thing about watching some of the videos, I think I'm gonna just listen to it while I do cutting, and then I find myself standing here watching, standing, and realize that I'm watching the video and not doing what I was going to be doing. But that's alright. The standing part, not so much, but it takes me a little bit, and then I suddenly realize that I'm watching the video while I'm standing here. And I could have gone and found some sit-down project and watched the video. Or I could have just watched the video. But I like to try to do as many things at once as I can. I don't know, I've always been a multitasker, so. Alright, well, I'm going to finish up these last couple, and I'll show you what I got on the board. Actually, I'll finish up these last couple, and I'll probably cut my couple square blocks that I'm just going to put in the center, and then we'll take a look at it and see how it goes. Well, I think I just showed some random snapshots of how I could have laid these blocks out differently and got quite a different pattern to it. I think this is the one that I'm going to go with. And so it's scrappy, but it's kind of a controlled scrappy because I'm going to go with the same strips on the center. Basically I'm kind of creating blocks. I'm actually going to end up sewing it in strips, but I'm kind of creating blocks in that each of the blocks that I choose to put on the inside of these rows, so in this space right here, in that space, each of the blocks that I choose to put on the inside of the row will be surrounded by the same color strips. So they'll be in reverse, of course, the middle one here being the brownish on the bottom and the reddish in the center, and then vice versa on the top. So in a way it kind of will create a block effect there, but they'll be sewn together in strips. So now I'm going to cut my backgrounds and see which one I like the best, or if I want to do that scrappy as well. Okay, I'm going to use my little hack here to get my 5.75 inch strip to cut out my 5.75 inch squares. So I have a 5-inch ruler, I have a 4-inch really long ruler and a 5-inch ruler, and then I go to like 10.5 square, and I could do that with this one, but sometimes it's just easier to put my little 1-inch on at 0.75 and then use my 5-inch ruler. Cut my strip like that, and then cut these down. I'm going to have to cut that much selvage, so at 5.75 I should just be able to get enough out of it. Let's see, 5.5. Nope, I'm not gonna. Gonna just miss it, because I need to cut my selvage off. Alright, well, let's just cut the selvage off and go from there. sure I'm cutting enough on the back. Yep. Sometimes it looks like too much when you're cutting on this side. But the white there, I should just flip it over, but it's cutting enough. I like to get every bit I can most of the time, but sometimes yeah, it's a little too much. Alright. 5.75. 5 3/4. I might have cut my strip just a hair short. That's the problem with using different rulers. Every once in a while they're just a thread difference. So that got 6. I should be able to do a 7th one. I think I'm going to leave this for right now, just in case I don't need to cut it down. Alright, let's see what we got on the board. I tried putting just the stripes up there, and then I tried just the blues, and then I've got this set for right now, and I think this is what I'm going to end up going with. Now the only problem is I'm going to have to lay it out in strips more. If I would have not done the blocks on point, if I would have done them just regular squares, I could have made up each block, but because I put the ones that I cut up, the scrappy ones, on point, I believe I'm gonna have to sew this together in strips. And so in order to do the strips in the style that I have right now, I feel like I need to lay out every block, because I'm gonna lose track of. If you look at those striped prints, I opted for going in different directions on different rows. And so in order to keep that uniform, I am probably going to have to lay it all out and then go sew it row by row. So I just can't quite wrap my brain around how I could do it by the block. Like I'm like trying to picture, could I make a block? Like I'm just trying to picture how I could divide it all up into separate blocks, but I can't quite picture it, so I'm just gonna go with sewing it as strips. So my easy quilt started out easy, and then I have to complicate it, and it's not that hard or complicated, but it would have been easier just to sew the strips and, you know, do one horizontal, one vertical, and easy peasy sew that quilt. But because I wanted to try the technique of cutting up my squares and having more scrappiness to it, now I've kind of added a little bit more complication, I guess. Not a lot though, it'll be fine. But it may not necessarily be done by Friday, so anyhow, I'll show you what I get, and maybe we'll come back next week and finish it up. think I only need one more after that, so. And then if I miscounted, I've got some scraps here that I can cut some more out of, but no sense cutting them down if I don't think I'm gonna need them. So. It's kind of all starting to want to fall down already, so I think I better be getting it off the board pretty quick. A couple of thoughts here. One, I do kind of like the trellis pattern to it, but I am curious if my two background colors aren't kind of overwhelming it so that you don't really see the scrappiness as much. Which actually could be a good thing, I guess. So, I don't know, I'm kind of curious how it's gonna finish up, so. And I keep feeling like there's a block in here somewhere to be sewn, like that I could sew it together as a block, not just as strips, but I can't quite figure it because I didn't really lay it out and do a pattern that way. I just kind of started sewing and flipped strips and cut strips and diagonals and just started going, and I feel like I should have maybe planned out a little bit better that this was going to be the block, and then you just add this on, and yeah, so I'm feeling like I can kind of see it now, but I still would have to sew other blocks in between, so I might as well just do it as a strip quilt. Like I can, yeah, I think I can see the block, but I think I'm still gonna sew it as a strip quilt. Alright, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get my strips off the board and start. Well, I'll probably start sewing them tomorrow, but I'm going to go ahead and get my strips off the board before they end up in a big old pile on the floor. So sometimes when I work on a strip quilt, I will literally sew one strip at a time and tack it back to my board. But sometimes I want to get it done really quickly and I just want to sit down at the sewing machine and go. And so the way for me to stay organized and keep my rows in order is to actually go through and I have this little sheet here so that I know that this is the left hand side of the strip and the pieces that I add on to it are going to be added to the right. And then I actually just have, so the first row is really just, if I can find it there, it's really just 3 pieces. So then the next row will say row 2 and row 3 all the way down to, I think there were 14 rows in this. And then for this particular quilt, I also still have 2 corner pieces that I'll have to sew on when I get done. So, but those are just still sticking on the corner of my board. And when I get each row done, I'll just kind of set it aside and I'll set the tag back on it for which row it is, and then I'll put them back on the board when I get done sewing. And that way I don't have to get up and down from the chair, I can just sew and go. So, but sometimes I do like to take each individual strip if it seems really complicated. And also if I maybe am thinking that I'm going to be too, like I need to get up and move around a little bit. But I think when I go to sew these, I'm just going to want to sit down and get to sewing.
Okay, so this was row 10. I just was chain piecing row 10. And then I'm gonna stack everything back in order as I cut it here. And I'm gonna continue to piece row 10. Over on my stack to the side that you can't see is actually my one remaining piece because these were odd length strips. So, oop, and I should start with a leader, but I don't and haven't been for this one, and I probably should be. Machine's wanting to act up today, so. Never used to use leaders, and then I kind of started, but I have gotten out of the habit again, and I need to get back to it. But I don't have any scraps on my side table here, so I'll have to get some. This strip to this strip. Make sure my red stripes are going the correct ways. And they are, so. Every once in a while I stop and take a moment to kind of make sure everything still looks okay. Yep, the seam got twisted there. Probably just snip the fabric a little bit and let it scoot back. Just cut it off a little bit. Like a bulk, it might be get bulky. Let's see. Alright, it goes to figure. Everything's been going smoothly until I turn the camera on again. Okay. Alright, so my last piece on. And again, making sure my stripes are going the correct way, which is opposite. And I'm just gonna pin my little piece back on here to tell me what row it is. And then I'm gonna move on to the next row. Alright, so now I need to sew my strips diagonally. And here's the part where a lot of people would have already cut their outside blocks to diagonals, but I did not. And also I'm going to need to line up, so like I have an extra block here on the second row, and then starts my first block with the first row. So I'm going to need to line up my second block on the second row and the first block on the first row. So I'm going to go ahead and pin those down to make sure they stay even. And then pin on the other side. So now when I sew this together, I'll open it up and I'll have the corner started. So I'll come back here in a second. Well, let me go ahead and show this to you, and then I will come back and show you the corner. See here where I just have the first block on the first row matches up with the second block on the second row. There are other techniques for doing this, but this is the one that I like, so. Alright, make sure nothing's shifted underneath there. I just feel a little bulky, so hang on. Yep. There we go. And now is where I get a little bit of bulk. Open it up and show you. So on the board, see if I can do this backwards or not. So this should be our very top piece right here. So this is going to be our top row, these two patch squares, diamonds, sorry, patch diamonds. And then I will come off later and trim this off and trim that off. And so each row then is going to be, it's going to have, the next row is going to have one more block sticking out to the side of this. One more block off the other end as well. So each strip I'm going to have to line up and have an extra block hanging off over here on the ends. And then I will just have a very large rectangle quilt with little points hanging off the sides and or hanging off all around the quilt, and I just have to trim those off. So I'll have some scraps from this quilt as well, so that'll be kind of nice. I'll come up with something to do with those. Maybe I'll make them into diamonds for the back. That'd be kind of cool. Alright, well I am just going to continue on with sewing the strips together, and I will bring you back when I'm done. I actually kind of wanted to come back and say, so I don't know why, but I took the row 1 note off of this row right here. But I will generally leave them on until I get done. That way I know I'm sewing the rows in the right direction. So earlier on I had said that when you sew the rows together, you'll have an extra strip on each end of the next row that you're sewing on. Or I will anyhow. I don't know if you're sewing along with me or not, but I have an extra square at the end of each row that I'm sewing on, but that only happens until you get to a certain point. So what is it, row 6 here? I've got an extra block on each end all the way up to row 6. And then I get to row 7 and I have an extra block on this end, but this is where I'm actually now at the edge of the quilt. So extra block on that end, 1 block short on this. And this will happen for this row and the 8th row, and then 9, 10, 11, and 12 will actually be 1 block less on each strip. So, or row, I should say. I just wanted to clarify because I got to thinking, I think I said earlier that you'll have 1 block extra on each row, and that's not necessarily going to be true throughout the entire process of sewing on these rows. So I just thought I'd show you that yeah, you're going to come to a middle point here where you still have an extra one at that end, but not at the other. And then of course you're going to come to a point where you're having actually 1 less on each end. So, all right, I think I just explained that 2 times. Sorry about that. All right, well, I'm going to finish sewing up the rest of it, and next time I come back it should be with a finished quilt, unless I think of something else in between. We'll see. Alright, so on my background patches, I feel like I may have cut them just a little bit smaller than the scrappy patches. But, I mean, not significantly, just enough probably that may be a portion of the reason that my seams don't quite, or my points don't quite match up. So when I pinned the rows together, I thought I was pinning them very well, but apparently not quite, because pretty much every one of these where the scrappy pieces meet with the diamond of the background, where the scrappy pieces are supposed to meet each other, that's where you can really tell that the points are off. And so I think what I'm going to do with this one, don't quote me, but we'll find out next week because I'm going to finish this next week. But I think what I'm going to do is actually tie this quilt. So it's a little bit bigger than any quilt that I usually tie. I usually tie baby quilts more than anything, but I think this one will be alright. It's a lap size, so it should be fine. And I might do a little bit of stitching on it, but for the most part, I think I'm going to go ahead and tie this quilt, and I'll just tie knots around each, or I'll tie around each of the background pieces. And then that way it'll kind of hide my points, right? So, and I kind of knew that I was struggling with the points apparently when I put the first piece up, or when I had the corner up there and was going over with you about having the rows suddenly start to not necessarily be an extra piece on every row. And so when I put that top corner up on the board there, I noticed it pretty bad. So, but I just kept going because I needed to get this done fairly quickly, and I kind of had that idea that maybe I would tie it. So I could have gone back at that point and tried to be more accurate and taken more time, but I just wanted to get done. That's not really what I want to say either. I don't know. I just had a feeling that the backgrounds were cut a little bit short too, and that even ripping it apart and trying to redo was gonna come up a little bit short. So then I just shifted gears and said, okay, I'll just maybe consider either tying it, or my other go-to is buttons. I can't really think of anything other than that. And actually on this quilt I could see like a nice brown buttons, or yeah, something kind of masculine. I could even put appliqué. That's an idea. Because not all the points are really bad, but those that are could maybe get like an appliqué leaf or something like that. That would be really cool. Yeah, although that's going to take a lot more time, so I think I'm going to go with the tied. And not that I have anything against spending time on this one. I just need it done fairly soon, so. Alright, I am also wondering if next week, if I'm going to end up cutting off the points, or if I'm going to end up doing a backing and a binding that actually includes the point. I'm kind of curious. I've never really done one with this size point, so I think I'll end up cutting it off. But I'm gonna be thinking on it for a little bit. Alright, well, I think that's gonna be it for this video, so thank you all for watching. I hope you maybe learned a little bit of the technique here in putting rows together, and maybe learned to take your time and be more accurate than I am. Anyhow, and maybe I learned too that I'm pretty good at kind of rolling with it and deciding to do something different. Anyhow, thanks for watching.